Hey folks, this is Rhykker with the Diablo 3 Season 28 Patch 2.7.5 Barbarian Build Guide. This guide is for the Horde of the 90 Savages Frenzy Barbarian, which got a nice buff with this patch to now deal double damage. And while this isn't the most powerful Barbarian build, it is the starter set for Season 28, so you can quickly put this together and use it to farm up the best build, or you can just enjoy this newly buffed skill. It's a lot of fun, you're attacking blitzingly fast, you're dealing crazy single target damage. The gameplay footage you're seeing is by Rob the Immortal King, and you can follow along with the written version of the guide on maxroll.gg, written by Rob. This guide also applies to non-season and future seasons as long as nothing gets changed with this build. In this video, we're going to go over the gear, the skills, and the playstyle that you want to rock a Frenzy Barb. So let's start with an overview of the gear. It all begins with the Horde of the 90 Savages set. The 2-piece set bonus doubles the effectiveness of shouts, and you deal double damage to feared, frozen, or stunned enemies. Now we have 3 skills that are shouts: War Cry, Threatening Shout, and Battle Rage. We'll explain exactly which parts of these get doubled when we cover our skill selection. Then the 4-piece bonus. Each Frenzy stack reduces damage taken by 6%. Frenzy lasts twice as long. Frenzy is a skill where you take a swing at an enemy and then you gain an attack speed buff for a few seconds. And this buff can stack up to 5 times. So with this 4-piece bonus, now it's lasting 8 seconds and additionally giving damage reduction. 6% at 5 stacks, that's 30% damage reduction. Then the 6-piece. Frenzy deals 1000% increased damage per stack. In Season 28 with patch 2.7.5, this is now 2000, so we're doubling the damage output of this build. Now another critical piece of gear here is the Bastion's Revered two-handed mighty weapon. Frenzy now stacks up to 10 times and hits an additional time per stack. Each additional hit will chain to any enemies within 15 yards, and the damage is split between all of the affected enemies. This item is so crucial for this build. First off, the 4-piece, now we're getting 60% damage reduction. Frenzy's 15% attack speed buff is now stacking 10 times to 150% increased attack speed. The 6-piece bonus is now going to be 20,000% increased damage, and we're now spreading damage around in an area as opposed to just single target. Our specialty remains single target, but anything that helps spread single target damage around really benefits us. Another essential weapon, the Oathkeeper one-handed legendary mighty weapon. Your primary skills, like Frenzy, attack 50% faster and deal up to 200% increased damage. So Bastion's Revered is going in the cube so that we can equip Oathkeeper in one of our hands. Next to the belt, the Undisputed Champion. Frenzy gains the effect of every rune and deals 400% increased damage. Huge multiplier, plus the utility of all the runes. Now, when it comes to elemental damage, the rune selection of Frenzy will determine what elemental damage it's actually dealing. Keep that in mind for later when we go over what we want on every piece of gear. We also want Depth Diggers. Primary skills deal up to 100% additional damage. You're going to want to put this in the cube. Big damage multiplier. Next, a very important item for survivability for barbarians is the Band of Might. After casting Furious Charge, Ground Stomp, or Leap, you take 80% reduced damage for 8 seconds. Then there's some wiggle room for the other items. Getting the Traveler's Pledge and Compass Rose combo, the Endless Walk set, will give you double damage while you're standing still, and you'll take less damage while you're moving. If you really want to maximize your damage though, you would go for a Convention of Elements ring. This gives you 200% increased damage, rotating through the different elemental types, and you just want to make sure when you're within your chosen elemental damage window, you are spending the entirety of those 4 seconds attacking. In that case, for your amulet, you can go with the Squirt's Necklace. This gives you double damage as long as you have not taken damage. But you're a barbarian, you are in melee a lot, you are taking a lot of damage very often, so it can be very difficult to maintain this buff. You would have to take the Molten Wildebeest Gizzard legendary gem, which we'll get to a bit later. Another option is going for a Hellfire amulet. The barbarian has a lot of really good passive skills. A Hellfire amulet allows you to get a 5th. Now for your weapon, if you want to maximize your damage, you'll want to go with an Azarath. This natively rolls with 20% more cold damage. Plus, it has a 25% chance to freeze on hit. Remember, our 2-piece bonus of Horde of the 90 Savages makes us deal double damage to feared, frozen, or stunned enemies. If you don't need all that damage though, because you're doing speed content, you can go with an Ingam instead. Your skill cooldowns are reduced by 10 seconds for 15 seconds after killing an elite pack. This will help bring all your other skills off cooldown and zip along faster. Now we can also work in either the Aughild set or the Guardian set. In order to do that, you're going to equip the Ring of Royal Grandeur in your cube. This reduces the number of items needed for set bonuses by 1. You get a Ring of Royal Grandeur from Act 1 bounty bags, not from Kadala, not from random world drops. You're going to have to sacrifice one piece of your Horde of the 90 Savages in order to fit in either Aughilds or Guardians, and then your Bracer slot going to, again, Aughilds or Guardians. The choice for Aughilds, you're going to get 2-piece bonus, reduces damage taken by 15%, increases damage dealt by 30%. 3-piece, reduces damage from elites by 30%, increases damage against elites by 30%. We are an elite hunting build. Focusing more damage against elites does help us quite a bit. However, the Guardian set, 2-piece bonus, your melee damage reduction is increased by 1% per 1,000 base vitality from equipped items. Your missile damage reduction is increased by 1% per 1,000 base strength, dexterity, or intelligence from equipped items, depending on your class, in this case strength. 3-piece, you gain double of your base strength, dexterity, intelligence, and vitality attributes from equipped items. Early on in a season, this is so powerful. Getting double your vitality, that blasts your toughness through the roof. And getting double strength off of just your base gear early season, again, very strong. It's doing the work of hundreds to thousands of Paragon points. The later into a season you go, the more of your strength is coming from Paragon and from gear augments, so the less you'd be benefiting from Guardians. By the end of a season, most people will not be running Guardians with a Frenzy Barb. They're going to be running Aughilds. But before you get there, Guardians is a very strong choice. Both of these sets are crafted. You can put both of them in Bracer and Helm. You can play around and see which you prefer, and decide when to make the switch. Now I'll go over exactly what we want on every piece of gear, but first, a look at the skills. First, you're going to take Frenzy. Again, the rune here depends on what elemental damage type you're dealing. If you got an Azurath, well, that's going to be cold. Otherwise, it'll be determined what you're rolling on your bracers and your amulet. You're getting every rune on Frenzy, but the major takeaways are Vanguard giving you 5% move speed for each stack of Frenzy. At 10 stacks, that's 50% move speed. And then Maniac is giving you 2.5% increased damage per stack for 25% more damage. Next, we'll take Wrath of the Berserker Insanity. Wrath of the Berserker gives you 10% more crit chance, 25% more damage, 20% dodge chance, 20% move speed, and with Insanity, a 50% damage buff. Next, we'll want to take Battle Rage, Bloodshed. Battle Rage gives us 10% more damage, 3% more crit chance, and Bloodshed makes us deal damage equal to 20% of our recent critical hits to enemies within 20 yards every second. So this is spreading our damage around us like a little bubble of pain. Thanks to the 2-piece of Horde of the 90 Savages, it's giving us 20% more damage, 6% more crit chance, and we're dealing damage equal to 40% of our recent crits. A glorious buff here. Next, we're going to take Furious Charge. This is for mobility and to trigger our Band of Might. We want to pop this at least once every 8 seconds to maintain our Band of Might damage reduction. For the rune, it depends on whether you're going for an Ingam or an Azurath. If you got an Azurath, then get Merciless Assault. Recharge time is reduced by 2 seconds for every enemy hit. This basically allows us to have much more availability to Furious Charge. If, however, you're instead relying on having massive cooldown via Ingam, you don't need that, and you instead get Cold Rush. All enemies hit are frozen for 2.5 seconds. So now we're using our Furious Charge instead of our weapon to maintain the 2-piece double damage against frozen enemies. Next, you can take Warcry, Veteran's Warning. Warcry gives us a 20% buff to armor, and Veteran's Warning gives us 30% dodge chance. Thanks to the Horde of the 90 Savages 2-piece, we're instead getting a 40% armor buff and 60% dodge chance. That's a 60% chance to take no damage. And remember, Wrath of the Berserker is already giving us a 20% dodge chance. Then lastly, we'll take Threatening Shout, Falter. Enemies near you will take 25% increased damage. Or thanks to the Horde of the 90 Savages 2-piece, this is actually 50% additional damage. Now, if you don't need all of this extra damage and all of this extra survivability because you're doing just regular rifts. Then instead of Threatening Shout, you can take Sprint Marathon. This gives you a 40% move speed buff, and instead of Warcry, you can take Ignore Pain Bravado. Ignore Pain will give you 50% damage reduction, and Bravado gives you a 40% move speed buff. Now, as for your passives, Rampage. Probably the single greatest Barbarian passive, and again, he's got a lot of great passives. So this increases your strength by 1% for 8 seconds after killing or assisting in killing an enemy, stacking up to 25 times for 25% more strength. That translates into more damage and more toughness via armor. Next, you want to take Boon of Bulkathos in order to reduce the cooldown of Wrath of the Berserker by 30 seconds in order to maintain 100% uptime, with the cooldown will be stacking. Next, Berserker Rage. You deal 25% additional damage while near max Fury. Hey, we got no Fury Spender. We are only generating Fury. We are always near max Fury. This is just 25% more damage always. Then your next passive will depend. If you're pushing way to rifts, Ruthless. You deal 40% additional damage to enemies below 30% health. This helps you finish off enemies. If you're doing speed content and you frequently have a lot of enemies around you, enemies are dying relatively fast, you're going to take Brawler. As long as there are 3 enemies within 12 yards, all your damage is increased by 20%. If you are blitzing through the content super easily like in a regular rift, you can get Pound of Flesh. When you are healed by a health globe, gain 2% life regen per second and 4% increased move speed, stacking up to 5 times, so 20% faster move speed in order to blitz it even faster. If you're working in a Hellfire Amulet, you can pick an additional passive, ideally one of the ones I just mentioned, or you can also take Nerves of Steel for a cheap death. As for exactly what you want on every piece of gear, for your shoulders, you're going to want Strength, All Resist, area damage, and cooldown reduction. You're aiming for 45 to 50% cooldown reduction. If you have an Ingam, this will allow you to maintain 100% uptime on Wrath of the Berserker. If you don't have an Ingam, you will not be able to maintain permanent uptime, so you're just going for as much as you can. Your Helm, Strength, Vitality, Crit Chance. Your Amulet, Crit Chance, Crit Damage. Then, if you are using an Azarath, Cold Damage. Otherwise, it doesn't matter, you just want your elemental damage on your Bracer and Amulet to be the same, and then you select that damage rune on your Frenzy. For your gloves, Crit Chance, Crit Damage, Attack Speed, Cooldown Reduction. Earlier in the season, instead of Attack Speed, you'll have Strength here, but eventually, as you're getting more Strength from your augments, from your Paragon, you can swap off that Strength for Attack Speed. For your chest, Strength, Vitality, Reduce damage from elites. The gems that you're going to want to put in your chest and pants. If you want more damage, rubies for strength. If you want more toughness, diamonds for all resist. The gem in your helm will be a diamond for cooldown reduction. Your bracers, strength, crit chance, life per hit, because we're hitting very fast, so we're going to be recovering life very fast, and elemental damage. For your belt, strength, vitality, all resist, and increases frenzy damage. Your pants, strength, vitality, increases frenzy damage. Boots, strength, vitality, all resist, and armor. For your rings, depends on your setup. Crit chance and crit damage on both. If you need the cooldown, get cooldown. Otherwise, get raw damage if it is a ancient item. If it's not ancient, get attack speed or strength. For your Oathkeeper, strength, attack speed, cooldown. For your Azarath, cold damage, strength, attack speed. And if it's an Ingam, instead of cold damage, get percent damage. For your legendary gems, Simplicity, Strength, no brainer. This increases the damage of primary skills and will be your biggest damage multiplier on legendary gems. Also, hits with primary abilities heal you for 4% of your max health. This will be a nice amount of sustain. Next, we'll take a Bane of the Trapped. This makes you deal more damage to crowd-controlled enemies and emits a crowd control aura. Great damage buff. Then lastly, a Bane of the Stricken. 25% more damage against Rift Guardians, but also each attack you make against an enemy increases the damage it takes from your attacks. We're attacking so blitzingly fast that Bane of the Stricken is more useful on this build than most other builds in the game. Normally, you would only swap to a Bane of the Stricken for the highest Greater Rift pushing you're gonna do, but because you're able to stack the Stricken stack so quickly, you can swap to your Stricken a lot earlier than with most builds. Alternatively, if you're going with Squirt's Necklace, you can use a Molten Wildebeest Gizzard. This will give you some life regen, but more importantly, give you an Absorb Shield that'll help you keep up your Squirt's buff. For your follower, you're gonna go with the Enchantress. You're gonna give her the Smoking Thurible so that she never dies. Then take Temporal Pulse for the slow that it applies. We're going to get Prophetic Harmony for the cooldown reduction, Powered Shield for the damage reduction, and Focused Mind for a bit more attack speed. For items that we're putting on her, we're prioritizing items that'll give us big buffs, like the Flavor of Time. Pylon effects last twice as long, emanates to us, so it's treated like we're wearing it. Nemesis Bracers, shrines will spawn an enemy champion, emanates to us. Oculus Ring, when an enemy dies, there's a chance that there's a golden pool that spawns on the ground. If you stand in it, you'll deal up to almost double damage. Put some Ice Climbers on her so that she's immune to freeze and immobilize effects. And then otherwise, you just want to be prioritizing stacking intelligence on her and attack speed. For our Paragon Points, max out your move speed, then put into Vitality until you feel comfortable. We're recommending until you get at least 750,000 life, but that's to your preference. Then dump everything into Strength. For offense, max out cooldown reduction, then crit chance and crit damage, maintaining a 1 to 10 global ratio between the two before they're maxed, then attack speed. For defense, all resist, life percent, armor, life regen. And for utility, area damage, pickup radius, life per hit, resource cost reduction. And that's going to wrap up this guide. But if you want to transition out of this build into the most powerful Barbarian build, the Rhykker Boulder Toss build, then check out this video over here. And stay tuned for more guides for Season 28. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.